Hello, welcome to the show. My name's Northy from Epic Flail, and in this episode, I speak to my mate, Dr. Norbert. We discuss the recent WTC MCP announcement, which is in October, Copenhagen this year. We announced that on last week's show with Gil, who jumped on and told us all about that, what it's going to look like, when it is, where it is, and all that stuff. If you've not watched that episode, I recommend jumping back and checking it out. But in this episode, Norbert and I discuss what we've learned from our involvement in War Machine WTCs, but particularly Norbert's expertise and insights of being on a WTC committee for many, many years, and also just being a man of the community. Norbert has seen loads of communities grow and develop, and he shares some really good information on things like how people can form teams, how you can get to events, how you can get to the WTC event together in the most efficient way, how you can fund getting there, what some of those fundraising events and stuff have looked like that have gone well. Norbert also outlined some of the things to avoid and processes and systems he's seen that have not gone very well, and shares loads of really useful information. He also gives us some new updated information on timelines and when we're going to get to see a little bit more. There's also a few extra bits that Gil didn't mention that Norbert drops in. So if you're interested in the event, make sure you check it out. Enjoy the episode. While you're here, I'm going to say that thing that everybody says every video you watch, but I mean it more than the other ones. Please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It lets us know that the content we're making is useful and you enjoy it, and it motivates us to do more. It also really helps with the algorithms and all that jazz. So please like and subscribe for more. I've got there's 10 Criminal Syndicate guys over there that I'm painting, and I've got my first games on Thursday at Dice Saloon in Brighton, which I'm looking forward to. So thanks to Matt in particular, thanks to Matt, my brother-in-law, who's been sending me all sorts of stuff. It's been mega helpful. And yeah, looking forward to getting involved in the game. So there's going to be more Marvel stuff to come in the next few weeks. If you're into MCP, please like and subscribe for more. Enjoy the chat with Norbert. Appreciate everybody watching, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers. Hey, there we go. Dr. Norbert, thanks so much for joining me, my dear friend. How are we doing?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's all right. It's like in 3 shows, I've had you on twice. It's nice.
I know.
After not doing any podcasting forever with you.
I was going to say.
Let's go, go.
You remembered how fun it is, and so we're back.
And how much I like chatting to you.
Yeah, likewise.
So we did the announcement the other day, which you knew about, I think, anyway, about the WTC.
Yeah, just
MCP
actually a couple
WTC.
Days ahead of the York Weekender, actually, when Gil started talking to me a little bit about it. But then he did the surprise move. I guess he got enough good encouragement from the few people he told that he decided to make the announcement right there at the York Weekender. Just
get all the information out there ASAP. Nice and excited. What was your, before we get into kind of main discussion points, what was your reaction to that? I guess you must have been pretty chuffed.
Well, yeah, and particularly because he told me how convenient the location is. I mean, it's at the Copenhagen Airport Hotel. So Copenhagen is a fantastic hub, easy to get to from all over the world. And, you know, airport hotels are great. You just walk out of the terminal and cross the street, and then you're right. It's just literally right across the street. Yeah,
there's been a few events. Was there a smog con like that once that was right by an airport?
Yeah, well, con. We did SmogCon, maybe BonesCon then too. It wasn't right next to the airport. You had to take a shuttle bus, but you could go to the Heathrow Airport and you could take a shuttle bus to the hotel, which was a really nice hotel.
So in light of that announcement, we thought we'd do a show talking about what the process is like for a country entering a WTC. So not only just the practical process, but I guess the practical process of getting a team in, but just, how do you, as a community, work together to make that a possibility? Because you in particular have learned a lot about that whole process, not only in your involvement of WTCs with War Machine, but as a player, as a head judge, as someone on a committee. So you seem like the perfect person to jump on and say to the community, well, that can feel like a bit of a crazy announcement. Like, that's quite a large thing to take in. Here are some ideas and things that you've learned, I've observed, just generally in the WTC space from our War Machine years.
Yeah. So let me preface this, though, by saying, when we started doing the WTC for War Machine was at its competitive height, basically. And so there's a lot of interest from a lot of different countries to come in, and we wanted it to be kind of a pinnacle of the game. And so we limited it to, I think it was 2 teams initially. And then over time, after we filled up those first 2 teams, then countries are allowed to bring a third one. But we didn't have even that many third teams because so many countries wanted to take part. Okay.
Yeah.
So we needed quite a few rules and things which you alluded to just now about getting people in. But what I want to point out first for the MCP WTC, at least for its first incarnation, is that we want to gather as much participation as possible so that people in this new community can experience what it is that we're doing and help it grow, essentially. So I'm here to tell you, speaking with Gil, the head organizer, that there won't be any limitations this year. You just need to have 5 people per team coming from a country, either because they're citizens of that country or because they happen to be living there. There's one you can have what we call a mercenary. So with permission with the event organizer, so you just have to message them. Basically, you can bring somebody in from outside of the country or citizenship to help fill out your team. But other than that, we're apparently accepting all the different possible people who want to assemble teams and come.
Okay, great. So it doesn't just have to be 5 from a nation.
Well, it could be 4. I mean,
4 and a 1.
Yeah, 4 and a 1. Preferably 5, obviously. But again, it's if you are not a citizen of the country but are a permanent resident there, or most of the time there, the point is you want to be able to play with your friends, and so we're not going to restrict that sort of thing. But the point is to try to not have just any mix and match of people from everywhere around the world. It's to have a little bit of a structure to it.
Yeah, great, awesome. So, what kind of, as someone who's got loads of experience from an organizational perspective, and just someone who's been so heavily involved in the War Machine community, what successful ways have you seen of nations forming a team? What's that process look like?
It is so varied. So you shouldn't be afraid of discussing it and trying things out. So I guess that's the first piece of advice is, have a few people who are active in the community, or the country, let's say, and get together and have a discussion about what it is that is good for you, the way your community is set up, the way your community's inclination is. You need to find the right system for your circumstances. And that's why when we were on the the War Machine WTC committee, we never specified to countries how they should do it. And everyone kind of did it a bit differently.
I remember for the first ever WTC trial day that we all the epic flail that we all turned up in like suits.
Oh yeah, I remember. That's right. Yes.
Me and Brett were like, we got it. We didn't want to take it seriously because we wanted to play, but we were like, let's take it really seriously. So we're like in full suit.
Yeah. Well,
I think people saw the funny side of that though. We weren't trying to take the mick. We just wanted to maybe take the seriousness out of it a little bit by turning up a bit daft.
Yeah, it was fun. So yeah, I mean, you have to do something reflective of your community, and that was one way to do it.
Yeah. So bringing the community. So I guess the first step then, if a country, it's not really, and for every country this would be the case, right? Because there hasn't been an MCP WTC before. I guess there are some tools at people's disposal, like Longshanks. Feels like a tool and an asset in terms of defining player skill and who the top 5 might be.
Yeah. So let's start simple though. The first thing could be simply, do you have 5 people who want to come? It might just be a matter of trying to scrape together the 5 people who can come together, and you've got a team and you're ready to go. So it might be just a matter of working out the logistics so people know the costs and have time off or whatever. And so those guys, you find those people who can make it, and they happen to be 5 people, and there's your team. That's done. You can have such a strongly developed meta, like I would say England, for instance, with a lot of players, a lot of different things going on, where you might want to do, because of the demand. Again, it all comes down to demand. If you don't have demand, then what's the point? But let's say you do have a lot of demand. You might want to do, we did applications where people would write in, what their records were in various different events and why they wanted to go and whether they could afford to and stuff like that. So it was a bit of, because you when you're trying to assemble team, it's not just who are the best 5 players. It's who are the if you're trying to do a competitive team, who are the best players who can also work together, If none of and represent the country well, you don't want to have people who are just, antisocial essentially, or being involved. So that's another consideration.
It was like I went to WTCs. I got to maybe 5 or 6, and it ended up in the sort of after a couple being like a CV application, right? Like you would literally put a bit of a CV together. Tournaments I've played in, and then a little bit of a profile almost of like where you want to go. And that always felt like a good, to me felt like a good professional way of approaching it. Like, let people know, hey, look, you're representing your country. Yeah, you're just playing with like small plastic miniatures, but like it's still something that the community cares a lot about, right? Especially in the age of the internet where all these different nations are chatting and seeing each other's results. And I guess that, like, for me as a player, felt like something that was like, no, this is like, it's important.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know,
Yeah,
people have got their eyes on this. It's a really important moment in the community.
You make it out to what you want to be. And I remember it was really great because people would come with really interesting jerseys with their flags on them and other kinds of like national symbols and so forth. And so it was like, you know, it got into a big thing. And this isn't really that unique, right? When you look at it, Blood Bowl, 40K, AOS, they all have their versions of this World Team Championship kind of a thing. And they all get that kind of hype when it comes, when they do their events.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I guess in summary of that first point then around forming the team, your initial suggestions might be just as a community, just see how many people are up for it. For like step one is mobilize with the key players in the community and ask the question to your community, who's up for this?
Right, exactly.
And get that list and be like, right, cool, we've got 9 players.
Right.
And then the next process, I guess, is a little bit more technical of like, okay, can we, which of these 5 players will gel the best? You know, will maybe be comfortable traveling, because that's the other thing you sort of don't realize until you're in the system is you have to spend quite a bit of time with a small number of people who you might not have met before, and you've got to try, you know what I mean, getting flights together, sharing cars, sharing rooms. I think our like second WTC, I was like sharing a bed with Brett. Thankfully, I'd like known for years. That's like super cool. But imagine if someone had just been like thrown in with Brett, like he's quite a character to just like share a room in a bed with. Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
cool.
exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. You need to look into those kind of considerations on top of just merely people wanting to go, and also if you're trying to get a competitive type thing.
Yeah.
Some countries then, you know, like I said, they would do feeder series. So they do a number of different events to try to build up a resume of results that you would then put into the application. Others have a national ranking system that they had in place already from other game systems. And so those numbers became a lot of the talking points. But I still think that all of them either had a committee or at least put the control into the hands of a team captain that would help kind of pick the players so that you get that gelling that you just talked about, you know.
Where have you seen it go wrong or lessons learned to avoid? What systems have you seen where there's been immediate tensions or problems?
Yeah. Systems where there's a lack of transparency about how people will be picked or how they were picked. And where it comes down to is that people will get aggravated if they feel like it's just mates asking other mates to come with them, as opposed to people who have been maybe in the best position or expressed an interest and were kind of unsummarily kicked out of the process.
Yeah, not very transparent processes that doesn't feel like, because I think the other thing that the English WTC committee and whole process got a lot better at was just explaining the process and why certain people were picked and not others.
That's right.
I think those first couple of I think the first like one, it was fairly obvious. The kind of tick box exercise that you went through, who actually wants to go and can go. But by the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th WTC, I mean, I imagine there was like 30 applicants. You know, there was a lot of people being like, I really want to get in a team.
Right.
And I think that I know that the people that were selected and weren't selected, there was a conversation saying, hey, look, this is, you know, great application. This is why you weren't picked.
Right.
And I think, Pete, that, definitely smoothed out some early door tensions. Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else on that note. But transparency seems like the biggest, the number one win from any selection process, right? It seems like
both in the way that the selection process will take place, and then also then how the results were handled after the selection is over. I think that's the best way to keep everybody happy. Oh, I should mention that there will be a singles event happening alongside the team event, like usual with War Machine. And the reason that's important is that people can come if they're just singles, but more importantly, it's for backup players or coaches or what have you, so that if they don't get brought in as the understudy, so to speak, they can still go and have a good time with a whole bunch of different nations playing against them, because it'll be the same sort of situation for other nations as well in the singles tournament.
Really glad they're doing that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
The WTC got serious, I think, when teams started having coaches in War Machine. I think the Americans were the first one to do it, like brought a coach. It's like, oh man, this really want to win. This is really serious. It's like got an actual coach. But it's quite cool. Quite a cool thing for someone to get involved in. Enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, and you may be really good at that. You may be able to see outside of the game really easily, whereas other people are better at tactical execution on the table. So it's entirely understandable. You know how many times you've watched a stream and realized what's going on way faster than the players do, right?
Yeah.
And it's because you're outside of the pressure of it all.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's a good conversation on what the formation process uh, could look like, and some like good advice around things to do, maybe things to avoid. Once you've got that team, then, or teams, once you've got that selection of players, what have you seen that's worked well in terms of funding and helping get people there? Because I know, again, early on from the War Machine WTCs, people would be like, "I'm super glad I've been picked. What a privilege!" But man, I'm gonna have to spend, you know what I mean? I'm gonna have to spend like a bit of money. It's quite a big cost. So, what have you seen that's worked on the funding front?
Yeah, I've seen it all kinds of different ways. I've seen people selling, like they'll put together swag that has like the team colors and stuff like that, and they'll sell that and get a portion of the profit from that. I've seen people do GoFundMe's, basically. I've seen people hold collections for themselves, or sometimes the committee themselves will organize some sort of a collection. And I've seen them run tournaments where the people will pay a little bit more for the entrance fee, and then the extra money goes to the team for their costs and stuff like that. So it can be done all kinds of different ways. And again, the most important thing is the transparency part of it, so that people don't feel like they're being scammed out of their money.
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen a lot of like really cool things being funded through that, haven't we? So like travel and like actually getting there would have been subsidized for a number of War Machine WTCs that I went to. We would have all the tokens and the widgets, which would be really cool. The like custom designed jerseys that people would swap after games, and that would be kind of like quite a fun part of the process, wouldn't it? Finding a team or a player that you had a great game against to swap the jersey.
Yep.
So there's quite a lot of, and I imagine for Marvel it's the same thing, right? There's loads of really cool things you could have customized and made there that represent the team and the country. Does anybody do widgets other than official Atomic Mass games?
Yep, there are some third-party people who make unofficial widgets with all kinds of different graphics on them. So those exist. So it would just be a matter of contacting those companies to make your own custom graphics.
Yeah, I could see that being a thing. Yeah, so so GoFundMe's, the tournament one always seems like a good idea, and the kind of like, I guess if your community is big enough, like selection days can be quite an interesting way of doing that as well, right? Just having 20 players that want to come and compete for a day and sort of see what the skill level is. And I know for War Machine WTCs, there've been days where you'd actually purposely match people up against other players during a selection day, and everyone would pay like 20 quid or whatever for a ticket, and that would kind of go to an end pot and pool.
Yeah, I think I was at one like that in Sheffield at the Outpost. Yeah, it was a lot of fun because in
the tiny one where it was really sweaty.
Like,
Chris, when I was on a top floor thing, everyone just like sweating at the top of a shop. It's like, oh my god, fun times.
Yeah.
What about? Sorry, go on, mate.
No, go ahead. Okay.
I was just going to move us on to traveling. So if it was a point on funding, jump in. But if not, no, cool. So what about getting there again? What processes and things have you seen that have gone really well on people getting there, like going early, or just go on the day, stay for longer? What's worked well on the traveling front?
Well, it really depends a lot on how far you're coming from distance wise. Like the Australians would come, New Zealanders, quite long distance, obviously. So they would always make it into European vacation as well as playing the tournament. I've seen some teams, like local ones, like the Germans, used to rent out a whole Airbnb house and play games for two or so days ahead of the tournament itself to get warmed up for it.
Then people would get invited. So, like, again, some of the later WTCs, some of the England guys would be like, "Yeah, but I've played some games with the Germans or whatever," and they'd like go to these little training camps and like have games and stuff, like just locked in, blinds drawn, and it's like a War Machine lock-in. Everyone just like game after game. Let's go.
Yeah, that's right. That's how they used to run it, or other countries too. Not too many, but a few did it that way. I know some countries, for sure, for the fun factor, will take advantage. They organizers will offer you for an extra cost to stay over Sunday night, and that way people can party on Sunday after all the pressure is over and everything's everybody's just having a good time. So they can party all night on Sunday and then go home on Monday instead. So that's another option that people do. And, then people either fly or just drive in time for the event and take off after it's over.
Yeah. And it can be a great road trip with a bunch of your mates, really. If you get that selection process right, it can just be such a hilarious few days on a little adventure and trek with your mates.
For sure. Even if you're not coming from a long distance, to spend a couple of days then in Copenhagen would be an excellent idea.
Yeah. So outside of traveling, then I guess the other area that I think is interesting that you've got observations on is preparation and practicing. Now, I think you've sort of caveated the whole conversation with this is the first MCP WTC, so this is about just finding the people that want to play, getting the people from different nations there, getting it on the map and getting the ball rolling. And I imagine year on year that will evolve and shift and change as the global meta develops. This will be the first one. But what have you seen that's worked well for the teams that have placed exceptionally well at WTCs? What does their practicing look like? How much commitment have you seen, and what processes have worked really well that you've observed?
Yeah, I don't want to scare people off because you can just take it to the nth degree if you really want to go nuts on it. And let's first start by some teams are just happy to be there and they're there for the lulls and great beer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So please, if you're listening to this, if you want to have lulls and beers, by all means, just come and do that because I'll probably be doing that with you. So that's number one. But yeah, after that, people, really, like, I remember some teams had programmers who were able to develop little apps, and then they would be able to plug in all of their good matchups in different matchups and bad matchups. And then the app would tell them, they would plug in what the other team was, and the app would tell them, okay, which are the best matchups that you could possibly hope for based on your prep time, so it could go to that nth degree. And if it's not an app, it could be a spreadsheet or something like that. But the point is that you've planned out kind of the kinds of teams that you want to play against, or the kind of like force you want to play against, the ones that you don't. And then the captain or else your coach would help you try to make those matchups happen.
Yeah, again, I kind of saw that evolve from originally it'd just be like the team captain would have a few phone calls with people and they'd write it down on a piece of paper. To those later ones, yeah, where you'd have like custom developed spreadsheets and apps that would be like, oh yeah, Team Netherlands, cool, and just work out the list selection.
Yeah, no, we skipped over something that is predicated on this, which is to say that we would typically have the lists submitted maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks ahead of the event and locked, and then published. And so that was the point is that you'd have that week or two yeah. to see what else was going to happen on the based, in reality, as opposed to what you think might happen, and then have to start planning as accordingly.
Yeah, you'd get homework.
Right? Yeah, that's right.
Sure you put your percentages in for all these wins. You'd be like, oh my God, it's going to take so long.
It did take so long.
And like the overwhelming majority of it will never be useful because you will not play that team. It's just like you know that only like 10% of what you're doing is anywhere near useful. But well, it's good. I guess it's a good exercise to think, gets you thinking about the matchups in the game. Is a similar thing going to be in place for this MCP WTC? Will there be a list submission and then a bit of time for teams to look at that?
Yeah.
What do you think?
We haven't published any of the rules just yet. They're still in the making, but it's going to be along those lines because that's part of the fun is to be able to see all these lists and kind of plan a little bit around it, and also get some content out for the content creators to work with as well.
Oh yeah, people go wild on that.
Oh yeah, it was huge.
2-hour show,
really
like
important.
every single list. Yeah, it's great fun, and those sort of processes are just great for the general community anyway, right? Because there's loads of players that are wanting to learn the game. They're like, oh, I'd love to see the Team England 5 lists. Love to know what the meta's like there, or how people are playing, and hear the breakdown and stuff. There's a really cool process that follows there, which is nice.
I can tell a bit more about the format now. It seems we have a committee of people from different countries that are helping us kind of figure out how to do this. And we've decided to go quite liberal for the first one, at least. So the biggest restriction across the team is that you can't repeat any characters. Okay. Which is probably people would guess. What we're not restricting, though, which is different from some other team tournaments that have been run, is crises. So every player will be able to pick any crisis they want. So you can repeat them as many times as you like. And we did that because the crises are such an integral part of the game compared to, like, say, War Machine. And we wanted the matches to still be as close to like normal singles tournaments as possible. Okay. And so restricting characters is one thing to make it interesting, but not restricting the crises. If you force people into some of them that don't really work for them, it really warps the game quite a bit. So we decided against that. Where we're on the fence right now is what to do about tactics cards. There's some of us who want absolutely no restrictions on tactic cards across the team as well. And there's others that say they don't want any tactics cards repeated more than twice. And so those are really really affect the non-affiliated cards most of all, right? Because character cards you don't have to worry about because only one character per team, so that you get that card. Yeah. I guess there's some that have combined characters on them, like either this character could use it or that character use it, somewhere like that, but they're in a minority. Affiliations is likely not, cards are not going to likely cause problems, because even though you could conceivably have two different affiliations with two different players, it's not, it's less of a hardship to have to avoid that. And so we're not too worried about that. It's really the non-affiliated tactics cards, about whether those should be completely restricted or allowed to be used at least twice.
Yeah, great. And what sort of deadline for more information coming up for like application processes and that sort of thing? Because I know you guys wanted to just get this out there and get the community talking and start identifying people that can help with this. But what's the deadline for websites and things like that?
Yeah, that is very imminent. Gil just made the decision over the course of last weekend, so he's still getting all the paperwork in order and the website and so forth. So that'll still be a little bit of time before it comes out, but we'll be sure to spread it out across all the socials and maybe give you an update as well on your channel.
Great, cool. Look forward to that. And just the final sort of thing. How do you see this playing out for MCP? Because you're playing. Are you playing a team event this weekend? You're getting about.
Yeah,
you're doing something cool this weekend. Is it this weekend?
It is this weekend. I wasn't planning to go, but I'm going to a team tournament in Madrid. I'm joining one of the Italian teams that are going there. They needed an extra player because one guy had to drop because of work. And frankly, the only reason I'm going is because my wife really wanted to see Madrid, and so
there you go.
I sold it as a trip to Madrid to her. Which, yeah, it's great advice for people out there listening.
Yeah,
to this.
yeah, no, good, yeah, pro move. So you kind of well connected with the communities. What do you think this WTC is going to mean for the MCP community? Do you think this is sort of, I mean, it's a bit of a leading question in a way, but is it quite well timed? Is the sort of global community kind of ready for this? Is this the right time for it to be happening?
That's the big question. I think we all felt it was close enough to certainly take a gamble on it, and we're lucky in that Gil was splitting this now between War Machine and MCP, which means that he's able to draw on both communities to make sure he gets the minimum number needed so he can not lose money. So I think from his perspective that makes sense, and I think from where we are as a game that makes sense as well, because we're not super popular yet. We're very popular, but not maybe super popular. And also maybe a lot of players are more casual players than was in the War Machine days, which is fine. So it'll be an interesting test. But as far as what it'll bring, I think it brings a lot of international recognition to the game. I mean, so many more people talk about it as a result. So many more people find connections with other communities as a result of these sorts of things. They start to travel to more ordinary tournaments across different countries. And that just helps promote a strengthening of the community, sense of community, and also just the how well developed the meta is for playing the game. So it's nothing but upside when it comes to things like this.
Yeah, it's amazing for Atomic Mass Games. It's like a superb marketing tool.
Oh, absolutely.
Just the streaming and because again, I'm thinking back on War Machine. As soon as that, I don't think the first one was streamed, was it? It might have been the second or third when people were like, let's stream games. But when that happened, it was just so amazing for the community, because there were just videos of people, all over YouTube, and it would allow people that are searching for War Machine. What's War Machine like? To be like, oh, what? There's a world championship. Oh man, this is a big thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It kind of elevates the whole thing, not in terms of competition, but in terms of relevance.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so yeah,
exciting
we're looking forward
times.
to it. It is exciting times, and it's it's not that long. We've come such a long way between release and then the pandemic, and then the rise of the tabletop simulator leagues. Through now the rise of kind of lots of local events, but we haven't really had a lot of cross-international events yet. I'm going to one now. The Spanish have been running them, a few of them, and so sometimes the Italians come over, but that's just a start, and I'm hoping this will help kickstart a whole new era of the game.
Yeah, feels like it from the outside. I was just saying before we started recording that I picked up a roster. In fact, it felt really nice actually that people just started giving me models. My brother-in-law, Matt, was like, there's loads of models, go play the game. We want to be playing the same game again. I'm like, oh, great. So I've got all these models, people lending me stuff. I've got a lovely group of people you put me in touch with, got me an intro game on Thursday. Yeah, it seems like it's in a really good spot. And that's why I was excited when I spoke to Gil at the York event. We're going to do this WTC. I was like, oh, wow, yeah, that's awesome. It's really jumped up in my, oh, right, this is really picking up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the game's in a great state now. It's going to be fantastic. And the metas are so different. We were able to compare some of the lists coming out of the York Weekender to the last big American event, which was the Las Vegas Open. And there's quite a bit of significant difference. And so it'd be fantastic to get some Americans to come over here in particular to try to see how they approach the game versus how we approach the game.
Yeah. Who's going to win? Who's got the strongest meta? Go on. Put everything on the line.
Who's got
now.
the strongest meta? That's a good question. The UK might, actually. The UK might. But I wouldn't put it past, like, well, the big metas that I know of are Spain, Italy, Sweden, and the UK, England. Obviously the States, but I mean within Europe. So I don't know of any others, and I'd love to find out how wonderful these teams are.
Yeah, be a good testing. Yeah,
if I haven't named you and you're pissed off about it, come to the event.
Yeah. Come get some.
we want to know who you are.
Yeah. Come out the woodwork. Wicked. Any other points you think you sort of had in mind pre-chat that you want to go through? Or have we ticked all the boxes?
Yeah, I mean, think of it as a really fun weekend away. It really doesn't cost terribly much, considering that you get the hotel, the meals, and the game all on the same ticket. So keep that in mind. It just comes down to having time off and being able to pay for the flight over to Copenhagen. Which, like I said, if you look, don't immediately say, "Oh, it's going to be so expensive." Take a look first. Take a look, because it's a hub, and so it tends to be really reasonable.
Yeah, I can vouch for that, and just all the experiences, friendships, everything you get out of the experience is so great.
100%.
It's money well spent. I've never left WTC and been like, "I was rubbish." It's always been
exactly
like, awesome. Met loads of cool people. It's fun.
That's right. And that's hard. We've had to convince a lot of Europeans about that sort of thing. The York Weekender is an exception, and everybody who went to that for the first time was just blown away by it. Americans have it a lot easier because they're more accustomed to going to big convention type things than like the mini tournaments that we tend to run. So yeah, take a chance on this is what I'm saying to everybody who's listening to this, because it's such a great experience. I can almost guarantee that you won't have a bad time and feel like it was worth the investment.
Yeah, agree. On that bombshell and words of wisdom, we'll leave it there, Norbert. it's always great to talk to you, mate. I love chatting to you and really appreciate your expertise in that. Hopefully it's useful to people that are interested in WTC, want to learn more, keep their eye on it. Like and subscribe, etc., all that stuff.
Mash those buttons.
Mash the buttons. Wicked. All right, Nob, any shout-outs you want to do? Give you shout-outs where people can find out more about what you're doing, maybe plug the TTS. I'll put it in the link in the description to you.
Yeah, I like to stream a TTS, so Tabletop Simulator League match, typically on Wednesday evenings. And so I do that initially on Twitch, twitch.tv/dr_Norbert. And then I post them up onto my YouTube channel after the stream is over.
Great, there you go. Check them out. Awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.